Hi.
Hey there.
Welcome to Say Smut, a literary podcast for readers and non-readers.
That is Sarah, and she loves books.
And that's Hope. She loves talking to me about books. This is a mini episode segment.
So that means we won't be delivering our typical book breakdown.
Instead, we will be giving you some recommendations.
In this segment called If You Like This, Try That, Part 2, because yes, this is our second time doing this, I have chosen 3 topics that are related to things I've been doing or enjoying or obsessed with lately.
And I've found books that pair with those topics or aesthetics because we all love a hyper-fixation.
Now, before we jump in, we want to make an announcement, which is that next week we will not have an episode because the following 3 weeks will be our big Bridgerton read-along.
Ay, ay. That is right. So if you are preparing for season 3 of Bridgerton, like we all are, and you want a refresher on what's happened in the books, what's happened in the previous seasons, what's, going to be Colin and Penelope's book, because we know that from the trailer, it's going to be Colin teaching Penelope how to be around men and whatnot, and then like how to get a husband. That is not the plot of the book. And as we all know who have watched the series, spoiler alert, Penelope is Lady Whistledown. So the actual whole book is about how she's Lady Whistledown and getting ousted. So you can listen to us talk about the book and it won't be like a spoiler for the show because we already know it's going to be so different.
Super not the same.
So if you are interested in that and maybe you want to read it for the first time or you want to read it again and find all the Easter eggs with us, we are going to dive into all those little parts.
Yeah, so part 1 is going to be a recap of the first 2 books and their corresponding seasons on Netflix, which will be released on April 29th. And then part 2 will be Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, chapters 1 through 11. And that is going to come out on May 6th, followed by part 3, which will be chapters 12 through 23. I almost said 26. That's simply not the number. Chapters 12 through 23. And we're going to release that one on May 13th, which is the same week that Bridgerton season 3 comes out.
So you will be all caught up for the season 3. I'm so excited.
We'll all be all caught up in every way.
I have watched so many TikToks of people being like, oh my gosh, I just can't wait to watch Colin completely grovel for Penelope this season. I've also heard it's like the spiciest shit yet.
I'm ready.
I also love that this story is going around that, what's the actress's name that plays Penelope? Nicola. I can't remember her last name. It's gonna skip me, but Nicola has in her contract that she has to have a PG cut of the show to give her parents. It is in her contract to have a PG version of the show that she can show her parents. And
that's so interesting because, I mean, how will you keep your parents off of Netflix, I guess, is my question.
I think her parents may be on the boat with her. You know what I mean? They're like, that's great. We only want to watch a PG version of you in this show.
We simply refuse to watch the real version of this show.
No,
and you're welcome for it.
Also, we all know that they've been teasing at it a lot, that they broke a piece of furniture on set while filming one of the spicy scenes. So love that for us. So check our Instagram and TikTok at saysmutpodcat for all of our updates on this. We've had a couple of people be like, where can we find you? And it's like, well, the podcast platform of your choosing, but we're also on YouTube. So I know some of you have found us there. Now we are going to get into our 3 topics. Would you like to introduce our first topic that I will be giving recommendations for?
Yes. The way that I picked these topics was based on things I've been enjoying recently or watching recently or listening to recently. And also for some reason, I was like, it would simply be too easy if I just told Sarah what those pieces of media are or what those things are. So instead, I'll give her associated vibes. And I don't really know why I did that. But topic number 1 was
sorry. Before you say anything, I just saw the first bullet point, which you did not have written in when I put my stuff in. And now I'm understanding the vibes.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
So the vibes for this first pick that I gave Sarah were underwater and ocean and tropical. Why did I pick this? Partly because I'm ready for warm weather, but mostly because last week I revisited the 2004 cinematic masterpiece, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie.
Which is so crazy because I was about to tell you that I, on Sunday, relived the 2005 cinematic masterpiece, which is Pride and Prejudice. But we have two very different
very similar interests. Very similar interests that Sarah and I have.
So, for those who don't know what SpongeBob SquarePants is, why don't you go ahead for us?
For those who don't know about the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, and I can't imagine who that might be, but maybe this will get you to watch it. Please join SpongeBob and his pig pal Patrick Star as they set out to exonerate Mr. Krabs in the case of King Neptune's stolen crown. Can the self-proclaimed Goofy Goobers make it to Shell City in time, or will King Neptune fry the greedy crustacean in his own restaurant? I want you to know that I wrote that myself.
I love that.
Thank you.
I will also say that I wish I had known it was SpongeBob specific, because I probably could have found something a little more on that lane.
Look, if you find something on that lane, put it in my recommendations for Hope document, and
That's
maybe
true.
It'll be a future episode.
I'll find SpongeBob Smut. I will.
I'm sure it's not hard.
I will also quickly say that we have both watched the Quiet on Set documentary, which
feels bad.
Yeah, we'll just leave that there because I want to caveat, we do understand even though SpongeBob isn't necessarily a part of the shows that were maybe impacted by this, right. It's still Nickelodeon just gives me the ick a little.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's mostly it. This movie has everything that you need. It's got humor. It's got SpongeBob. It's got aquatic life. It's got mermaids. It's got David Hasselhoff, and I don't know what else you could want. So I watched David Hasselhoff. It holds up for me anyway. Still super funny.
So my recs, on a more younger note, we have both my recs are young adult books, which I am a firm believer that you can read young adult books, whatever age you are, and that it will be a good time. A lot of them are really, complex concepts too. And I don't know. I don't know. I know some people are like, oh, you can't read YA when you're an adult. And it's like, shut the fuck up. I'm out of here.
Just to recap, Sarah is apologizing for recommending YA books. And I just admitted full-chested and with no shame whatsoever that by my own choosing, I rewatched SpongeBob SquarePants movie.
No, I did not apologize. I'm just saying that I know some people are against it. I'm not. So my first series is Fable by Adrienne Young. I love Adrienne Young's writing. If you want a world you can dive into and just keep kind of tacking on more stories in that world without committing to like 8 books. There's 2 in the main duology. And then if you want a little more, there's a prequel. And then there's a spin-off book. And then there's a little novella. You do not need to consume them all. If you find out you don't want it all and you just want the first 2 books, that's fine. But it's for those people who like really love it and they just kind of keep going, So Fable is the daughter of the most powerful trader, meaning trading goods, in what's called the Narrow. It's been 4 years since the night she watched her mother drown during a storm and her father abandoned her on an island. The island, it was notorious for thieves and poverty. So she kind of has to raise herself in this kind of rough and tumble environment. But she's really focused on getting off that island and kind of squaring off with her dad. So she's hired by a captain by the name of West and joins his like ragtag crew. An adventure ensues. It's got a little bit of magic, but for the most part, very nautical, very found family. There's romance, there's tension, very fun. Now, the next one is called All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. It is also a duology. I'm going to say I like the second book better. But there is a lot jam-packed in there. It's very, very magical, very fantasy heavy. So Amora is a princess and she will become an animancer, which is the master of souls. Okay.
Ooh.
And her family has like deep soul magic. But when she has to demonstrate her magic before she like kind of steps into the role, the whole demonstration goes wrong and she has to flee her country. And so she strikes a deal with this pirate named Bastion, and like lots of chaos ensues, and obviously romance, because we can't do without the romance. But there's like insane monsters and vengeful mermaids and essentially mob pirate people. Anyway, crazy nautical vibes. I hope that delivers on
It did. It is not unlike SpongeBob.
It is not. Just no sponges involved. So what's your next topic?
Amazing. My next topic is self-care vibes. This is not based on a piece of media. I have a disclaimer to share, which is that I consume actually a kind of a very limited amount of like shows and like I listen to the same podcast every week, and I kind of watch the same stuff every week. And especially for the past month, my whole vibe has been women's basketball and absolutely nothing else. So it's kind of hard to get recommendations. So for this one, I was going for something a little bit different, which is more of a self-care vibes, because I've been just really into, I'm just literally recommending you take big bubble baths and put on face masks and kind of, a take care of yourself vibe. I just got some new rose bath salt that I absolutely love, is the first reason that I'm bringing this up. But the second reason that I'm bringing this up was that I was kind of snooping around the internet this weekend and discovered that Lush has a line of Shrek stuff.
Oh
like
my God.
Shrek bath bombs and like green slimy looking gels, and it's incredible, and I desperately want it.
That's actually really impressive. And if you guys want some Shrek smut, please go back to our what's it called? What's the book called? We will get it for you. But there's an episode.
I'll never get over you.
Never get over you.
I'll never be over you.
Something like that.
It's something like that.
It's a good ogre pun, but it's also Shrek smut. So I also have a disclaimer, because I got self-care vibes from her, and I don't like self-help books. I think it's really pretentious to sit back and claim you know how to solve everybody's problems and you're going to write the answers down, and that your theology and your priorities in life, especially if they're religious focused, needs to be implemented in everybody else's. So that's my caveat. However, I will recommend the book Wintering: The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times by Catherine May. You may say, Sarah, wintering, it's spring. What the fuck are you talking about? And I will say that it's more about a wintering concept. You can read it any time of the year. I did read it early fall last year. And it came after I was in the grieving process of losing somebody, but also it can be for anything you have going on in your life. I think what I love about it is it's nothing groundbreaking. It's more just reminders of like slowing down. And we are technically, animal species too, that we need to hibernate. We need to hunker down and take care of ourselves. And what this author does is she was diagnosed with cancer, which forced her to slow down in her life and spend more time with her family, more time at home. And so she went and looked at how different animals and different communities, specifically like Nordic communities, how they prepare for winter, how they prepare to settle down. And it was just really introspective. And I think she takes a really great approach, because she puts out there that not everything works for her. And she's kind of skeptical of a lot of things she tried. But if it works for somebody, it works for somebody, So she doesn't come at it from a point of like, you have to do this. Now, if you're like, hey, self-care vibes, I just want a low pace book, chill, that's going to be like a little hug. I will recommend Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage, which is the second book in the Done and Dusted series that we have covered. I will also recommend literally any historical romance book. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, read Bridgerton with us here in a couple of weeks. And then you had mentioned bathtub. And I was just thinking about a book. I'm going to pull it up because it's not in my notes, because I just thought of it now.
Yeah, I can't read the surprise book.
there are so many books with like bath scenes that are very suggestive bath scenes. But one I've read lately was Hopeless by Elsie Silver. It's the 5th book and final book in the Chestnut Spring series. And not only is there a bath scene where she's in the bath and looking like a snack, but he comes because she texts him. She's very inexperienced about sex and stuff. And so it's not that he's like necessarily helping her with sex stuff. It's more like she just has no filter and blurts out everything she's thinking. And she's like, oh my gosh, I realized I should probably shave something down there, like more than what I typically do. Should I shave like an arrow? Should I shave like a triangle? Should I do a little landing strip? And so he comes into the bathroom and he gets into the bath and shaves her.
Fascinating.
I don't know if that's like a massive turn on or off to people. I'll leave it up to you. But yeah. And then he goes down on her. And he washes off everything.
Sorry, I know this is an audio medium. I need to tell you that I'm pulling a face about a post-shave go down on. Not that I'm not supportive of it. Super sexy. Mostly because of the little tiny hairs just everywhere.
Wouldn't it be like all up in your mouth? Like, but he allegedly like cleans it up before he goes down there. I don't know. But look, there are lots of I'll make a social media post of bath scenes in different books with bath scenes. Okay, there you go. That's what I've got for you.
Thank you. You can read those recommendations in a bathtub, maybe even with Shrek Lush products.
You could. We are not sponsored by Lush.
We're not, but we would be if they wanted to.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Anyway. Wonderful. Let's get to my second recommendation, which is a piece of media.
It's their third, actually.
Or third, sorry. I'm so tired, you guys.
We're making it through.
I woke up at 2:45 this morning and I did not nap. Can you tell? I can.
Wild. That's wild.
Don't even worry about it. We're having a great day. My third topic, which is not my second topic, I gave sort of a gothic vibes. I told Sarah, think vampires and Frankenstein and monsters. And I realized this is in like kind of complete opposition of the summer and self-care vibes I started off with. But I don't care because I love this podcast. My last recommendation is an actual play podcast called The Adventure Zone, specifically The Adventure Zone versus Dracula, which is one in several seasons of The Adventure Zone, which is a podcast by the McElroy brothers and their dad. I will tell you more in a second. So basically, I would say think of this as like a very funny improvised storytelling podcast. If you like listening to books, you might like listening to an actual play podcast. In this season, they're playing Dungeons and Dragons specifically. But basically what that means for you is like you're listening to people tell a story and do stuff. This one in particular first stars Justin Travis and Griffin McElroy and Clint McElroy, who are 3 brothers and their dad, and they play D&D together. And at The Adventure Zone versus Dracula, you have 3 main characters. One is Crawford Muttner, who's a monster hunter, and there is brother Philo, who is like kind of a cleric, person of the cloth kind of dude, and then they have this high society woman who is also like kind of a Frankenstein, and her name is Lady Godwin, and they're all going out on a quest to just absolutely kick Dracula's ass and also possibly, hopefully, take his teeth.
Wow,
this podcast, it's very. Hopefully, we're getting his teeth. To be determined, but it has monsters, it's got goofs and gaffs, it's got all kinds of laughs, it's got adventure, really great storytelling, very gothic vibes, very like Frankenstein, obviously Dracula vibes, so lots of monsters, but very, very funny. High recommend, lots of laughs to be had.
That is delightful, because what I took from that is gothic and monsters. Okay. Mm-hmm. I didn't take the hilarious part. Neither of my suggestions are lighthearted.
None of them have to be lighthearted,
but I
just have monsters.
Yeah, I'm a bitch for a good gothic book, which is why I start by saying, say less, queen. My first book is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. It's a new release this year. It's an adult book. Now, both the suggestions I'm about to give are adult books. So what's the setting? It's 1960s Massachusetts all-girls college. Okay. Character, Lara is a fresh-faced plus-size girl. I want to give, there's a lot of representation is what I'm going to say in this. She's a plus-size girl from the Midwest, very, you know, sweet, darling, innocent. Nemesis is Carmilla, who is like head of the class, right? And now she has new competition. So they have some sexy, intense rivalry for the attention of the demanding poetry professor, de La Fontaine, who has a very dark obsession with Carmilla. It is sexy. It is, as I've said multiple times, dark. And it's got vampires. It's also a sapphic romance. I will say that S.T. Gibson is very good at complex interpersonal relationships. So please check trigger warnings. There's one at the very beginning of the book by the author for the dynamic between these three women. So that one I read, I got an arc of it. It was so good. I do love S.T. Gibson's writing. If you think, that sounds so familiar, that name, it's because she wrote A Dowry of Blood. Is that what I'm thinking of? The Dowry? Yeah, The Dowry of Blood, which was a Dracula retelling of his first wife. And he took multiple spouses over his lifetime, quote unquote. And
his eternal lifetime.
Yeah. So it's very polyamorous. It's very vampire, dark, sexy, but also complex relationships. So I just always think her writing's great. And then my next one is A Dark and Drowning Tide by Allison Saft. It's also a new release this year. I also got an arc of it. It's also an adult book. It's also gothic. So this is more gothic than monster vibes. It's a fantasy with some complex political and social backstories. So if you're into kind of that type of depth, that like this is one where you're going to be thrown into it right away. Like you're going to have to pick up on a lot. But Lorelai is a folklorist and she just got done with school and her folklorist degree. She is of a class and a group of people who are definitely looked down on in their society, so that she, for her to graduate with this degree from this college is really a big deal. Anyway, she's got a quick temper and even quicker wit. She's put on an expedition with 6 eccentric nobles, including her academic rival, Sylvia. So we have now 2 academic rival books. Didn't mean to do it, but here we are.
I didn't have a single rival in school. Sarah, did you have rivals?
Everyone's got rivals these days. I had internal rivals who did not know they were my rivals. But
not outward sapphic rivals.
No, I wasn't enemies to lovers. Yeah, I wasn't enemies to lovers with anybody. But so Sylvia and these nobles are all like childhood friends. So Lorelai is really the outsider. But they have to go on this expedition to find a magical spring for the royal family. Like the spring has magical qualities to it, and they have to find it because the royal family is demanding it of them. After the steamboat pushes off from shore, a murder occurs, and Sylvia and Lorelai have to solve the murder and also answer the question, why would somebody start a coup among this group of people? So not only are they questioning their companions, but they're also fighting all these magical beings like water dragons and shape-shifting beasts. This is another sapphic romance. We love to see it. I highly recommend that one too. So both of those are very kind of dark academic vibes, both very gothic, have some monsters, have some we've got to solve something that's happening type of deal. You know what I'm saying?
Love it. Mystery, some would call it.
Yeah, a little mystery. A little mystery. I will say I've been reading some I want to give a couple plugs for a couple of random just tidbit things I've been reading lately. Can I do that?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's our podcast, so
we can do whatever we want.
We can do whatever we want. I mean, Hope never asked me what I was really into these days. But
what are you really into these days, Sarah? Say it right now.
Let me just tell you. If you're looking for some really oddball things to enjoy, I have done a couple of audiobooks that I would like to recommend. I am currently reading Big Swiss. Hold on. By Jen Began. It is about a woman who is a translator. Like, she translates transcribes is what I'm meaning to say. She transcribes the sessions of a sex therapist, and she becomes hyper fixated on one of the clients. And then sure enough, she goes to the dog park and accidentally hears the voice of said client and then becomes hyper fixated on them. It is not necessarily a romance. It is definitely just like a women's fiction or a general fiction book. But it is so like witty and dark humored in a lot of ways, but it's very entertaining to listen to because they do use a lot of different voices to depict all the characters. So it's easy to follow who's who. Most Ardently by Gabe Cole Novoa. I'm so sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. It is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. It's young adult, but the lead character who would be in the place of Elizabeth is a transgender man. So cool. It obviously had depth to it because it was dealing with trans issues, but it was so well done that it just felt warm. It just felt like a little warm hug. It felt like a very sweet retelling. I love that it's a YA version. And plus the author is a trans author. I love seeing, somebody who's in the community speaking and doing things on behalf of their community instead of hearing about somebody from a different community trying to emulate those types of topics. My last suggestion, little drum roll, is about hot dogs. It is summertime. It is baseball season. Mm-hmm. Opening day has happened. So therefore, I'm going to force everybody to hear about the hot dog book that I had to read because one of our friends, Madison, forced it upon me. It's called Raw Dog. Raw Dog, The Naked Truth About Hot Dogs by Jamie Loftus. I want to say is her last name. I know
Is it even a monicum as sexy as the other books on this podcast?
Absolutely not.
I didn't think so.
She goes around the country. It was kind of during COVID times yet. And she goes around on a road trip to try all of these hot dogs at these really iconic hot dog places around the US, starting in Arizona. I think they end up in New York, but they end at the Nathan's hot dog eating contest on the 4th of July.
That's tough.
But they talk about she talks about some really fun facts, like, how is the hot dog from Costco so cheap? And how did that come about? How did Auntie Anne's come about? And obviously they offer a hot dog. All these really sketchy interactions she has at these hot dog places. The history of where did the hot dog come from? The current state of how, a lot of these meat packaging places are taking advantage of specifically immigrant communities or marginalized communities. And she even gets into stuff that happened in Iowa during COVID. I really appreciated that as somebody who was a journalist who also reported on the fact that Tyson Foods managers put pool money bets on their employees' lives during COVID, which was absolutely bonkers.
You can't hear, but I'm shaking my head because it was awful and we did cover it.
It was absolutely terrible. But she also talks about more like, intricate concepts like competitive food eating contests and who like the pay discrimination and the experience discrimination between men and women who do food eating athletics. I don't know what you call them, but like, you know what I'm saying?
I'll call it a sport.
No, it's definitely a sport when she gets into explaining what goes on. And guess what? She says, we're all asking the question, are they all fucking? And sure enough, they are. They're even married to each other. People who participate in these like competitive food eating contests are married. And sure enough, they go to this Nathan eating contest and it's in Coney Island. It's crazy. It is wild.
Hot dogs. I don't know what to tell you.
But I have to say it was fun to listen to. It was very podcast-esque to listen to. So those are kind of some of my oddball suggestions for those who are looking for some other things. Anyway, do we have anything else? Is there anything else? I mean, like, I'm listening to Chappell Roan. I'm listening to Cowboy Carter. I'm listening to our favorites.
I am very excitedly following the WNBA and every team.
Oh my God. Caitlin Clark, WNBA. Obviously, first pick all around.
I can't even talk about it. It's so much. It's all I've thought about all day.
And then her teammate getting also
Kate Martin. Drafted in Las Vegas. So freaking excited.
So for those who don't know, we are both originally from Iowa, and Hope went to University of Iowa. I went to Iowa State University, but we both have love for each other's teams. And obviously everybody in Iowa was massively rooting for Caitlin Clark and the team as they went through the double NCAA tournament. Double and NCAA. I don't know what I just said.
YMCA.
YMCA. Anyway, but we just have a lot of love for obviously women succeeding.
I'm obsessed. I need you to know that it took me 0.0 seconds to buy a Caitlin Clark Indiana Fever shirt yesterday.
Absolutely.
I already have one coming in the mail. So
I can't wait. I can't wait.
If you have Peacock, I watched the I Love You, You Hate Me 2-part Barney documentary series, and it was something else.
Okay.
It was really interesting. That's all I have to say. I don't even want to get in further because we've been going for hours. It could have been one of our topics, but Sarah did not pick it.
I don't even know if you put that in there. Did you put that in there?
It would have been the TV production or dinosaurs. I have like a couple side by side.
This is not a dinosaur contest or contest.
I know it's not
a dinosaur podcast. This is not.
That's why I didn't lead with dinosaurs, because I knew you would just reject that. But it is technically about a dinosaur. But really, it's about the making of the show Barney and the fallout of the show Barney.
Well, I will counteract that with I am obviously deep into Stardew Valley right now, as I'm listening to all of my audiobooks. And it's because on the Say Smut podcast account on TikTok, I scroll sometimes. I be scrolling on that account. And
we see you out there. And by we, I mean Sarah mostly.
For some reason, I got on Stardew Valley side of TikTok that was making thirst traps for the different characters you can get in a relationship with. And I started getting so many thirst traps for Harvey, the doctor. And now I'm convinced I need to be with Harvey, the doctor. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
Just to clarify, you said you were using our podcast TikTok when you did this. I choose to believe that TikTok was like, this is an account all about smut. And somehow you accidentally got Stardew Valley, and they're like, I know what this person really wants. The wombo combo of sexy Stardew Valley.
And now I'm getting like Haley cosplay. Like Haley's another character, and it's cosplay of her. And I was like, you know what? That was so good. Anyway, so am I on Stardew Valley thirst trap talk? Yeah, I am. So if anybody
join us there.
I'm about to hit winter, and so I'm really scared because I won't have any crops to grow, but I do have 2 cows and 4 chickens. So if anybody can give me advice on what to do with my winter seasons, I would appreciate it.
Please send all Stardew Valley advice via a recommendation for our podcast. Preferably with 5 stars, but however many stars you think is fair.
Yeah, we're all about fairness and honesty in this podcast. Now, you're probably like, how do I even rate a podcast after this episode? This is not our typical episode. This is just a mini episode because we are under so much work trying to prep things for Bridgerton. Next week, we will be off to give us a little more time because we do have full-time jobs. Some of us have more than one full-time job. And then we do a podcast on top of it all because we can't stop, won't stop. But if you so choose, you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at saysmutpodcat. Additionally, we'd love to hear your book recommendations. Send those our way via email at saysmutpodcast@gmail.com. Also, we'd love it if you popped us a rating and or review on the podcast platform of your choosing. Please don't send us mean stuff to be mean stuff. Send us mean stuff because you want to be enemies to lovers with us. Please. Also, we might be getting a few little promo-y items. And we might just drop them at some bookstores around the Midwest. And they might be some fun stickers and some bookmarks for free that we're just going to drop around. We just might. It will be like our own little Stardew Valley. We're just going to leave little treasures for people to pick up at different locations. Go to your local bookstores. We'll leave them there. But we'll post those on social media when we got them. And with that, stay smutty, y'all.
Ta-ta for now.